Hi guys, this week is the first of our two mid-season Beatle movie specials because we have a break from the Monkees for a little bit to reset your monkey-crazed minds. Now, the Beatles may be another boy band from the 1960s, and boy bands may be for children, but the Monkees pod is not, as you know. Viewer discretion is advised because, much like the Beatles, we are allowed to smoke and drink on camera. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome back to the Monkees Pod, a Beatles recap podcast. My name is Sommer.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Molly.
Today we have something a little special for our mid-season break. We are going to be reviewing A Hard Day's Night, 1964. The Beatles movie that inspired the Monkees somehow, even though it is not very similar in a lot of ways, although it is in a lot of other ways. I know that my monkey obsession came as an offshoot of Beatle obsession, which is, I'm guessing, similar for you.
Yeah, the same thing for me.
Yeah. And both of us might be a little more versed in Beatle history than Monkey history, but that's probably because there's more Beatle history to talk about.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Every time the Beatles breathed, it was written down, and there's some nerd who's going to be like, "What, you don't know when John had a broken tibia for 3 weeks in 1968?" And like,
yeah, the Beatles are more well known and also more socially acceptable to be a fan of.
yeah,
So I think that's part of it too.
because they did play their own instruments. Now, Mom, what is your experience with the Beatles?
What is my experience with the Beatles? I know a lot of Beatles songs, a lot of Beatles music.
Because you're alive on Earth.
Because I'm alive on Earth, but because it was being played all through my childhood and my whole lifetime. And
same, because I'm alive on Earth.
Yeah, I know, but they were still making it when I was when I was younger. And
actually they weren't, because they broke up 2 3 when you were like 3 years old.
Yeah, but no, okay. I mean, but
it was still
Paul
of the time,
McCartney and,
right? You were on that Wings.
Yeah,
you were in the pit for Wings.
Yeah. I can identify most Beatles songs,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never seen any of the Beatles movies except Yellow Submarine.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been considered myself a huge fan of the Beatles. I mean, I listen to the music.
Mm-hmm.
I like the music.
You saw my play.
I saw your play.
You saw our play.
But
which Beatle is this?
That is George.
You did it.
Oh.
Okay. Because our stage manager, Calicia, still has trouble.
Oh, yeah. I had to give her a lesson with the dolls.
We have to say that, yes, that your father was making fun of me because I started watching A Hard Day, whatever.
It's the name of the song and the album.
It's
That's
hard
a hint.
to say.
Hard to say night.
And I'm watching it and I'm going, is that George? Who is that? Like I'm not that well versed in them.
They do look alike in this era. They have the
Yes.
same haircut on purpose and wear the same outfits on purpose.
And they're in black and white.
And George and Paul resemble each other in this movie, to me.
Because they have big blinky eyelashes, probably.
Because of their hair, and that's the other thing. Is also, like, to me, the Beatles is Paul McCartney and
friends
and John Lennon, and George Harrison and Ringo Starr are like the extras because the other two were the ones who were like huge, and it's not like George Harrison didn't go on to do things as did Ringo Starr, and they did, but it was just that not to the magnitude. Like Paul McCartney, I'd still go see Paul McCartney,
right?
Like now,
if you could afford it,
if I had a couple thousand.
I saw him as my graduation gift of high school. I saw him like the day before graduation, and the next day I went and graduated, and it was very magical.
Mm-hmm.
I would go see any of them, but like Paul McCartney, I would my entire life I would have gone to see Paul McCartney.
The thing about the Beatles is that any little tiny point you can do a podcast episode about for hours and hours. So we're just going to go over, like, for the historical background, the fastest speed run through their careers up to this point. I wrote Beatle Basics with Molly. Quarrymen. Go.
Oh, the Quarrymen. Okay, so this was the band they had before they titled themselves the Beatles, and it was started mostly by John, and Paul came along, and George came along, and this was pre-Ringo.
It's like their high school friend group, and Pete Best was there, and he's not the best.
Pete Best.
And they had to replace him with Ringo as drummer. Hamburg. They went to a little tour of Hamburg, Germany. They lived there for like a year-ish. I don't know. They got into some shenanigans. That was when they were in their bad boy era. They were like playing at strip clubs. They were like wearing leather pants on stage. And then Brian Epstein came along and said, "You boys are much too nasty. It's time to get classy."
And classy means you wear a suit and have the same haircut and you bow all at the same time.
Yes.
And the girls will love you, and it worked.
And Brian knew this because I'm not going to say because he was gay, but
it helped.
It helped because he knew about fashion, theater, presentation, and marketing.
Is Brian Epstein American or?
He is British. He's from Liverpool. He was like Jewish as well from Liverpool. I realized the other day that I'd never heard his voice or anything, so I looked it up. He doesn't really have a Liverpool accent. He kind of has a Frankenfurter accent.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I've heard his voice.
He has like a very posh accent, but he is also from Liverpool. He was like, because he noticed them when they were playing it at like in town at first, and was like, "I need to manage you guys so that you're not so nasty and you're more publicly accessible." So they were gaining fame in England at that point for a while, and they had started to have some success in America as well. And then they went on the Ed Sullivan Show and broke everyone's brains permanently with Beatlemania.
When was the Ed Sullivan Show? Do you know?
64. It was earlier this year.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it happened really fast. And as we know, Davey was there at the Ed Sullivan Show. And before this movie came out, they also had 2 albums out already. They had Please Please Me and what's the second one?
Wait,
with the Beatles? With the Beatles, yeah, with the black cover with their heads and Ringo's shorter.
Ringo's down there.
Ringo's down because they put Ringo down. Those are the Beatles albums that are known by music bros as the ones girls like, so they're not as good as Abbey Road. But I think that they are the most important Beatles albums.
I agree. And I could get into it, but like in general, like when we talk about this movie and when we talk about the songs, A Hard Day's Night is my favorite Beatles album. And because I feel like that era was so important, like yes, because it set them up for everything that came later, but it really like establishes their image. And I think that Hard Day's Night like has great songs and good quality music, whereas like the other two like have a lot of covers which are very like well done and stuff. But like Hard Day's Night I feel like is such a good definition of like really putting their stamp on the boy band era.
Out of their early stuff, I think I like actually Please Please Me and With the Beatles more, even with the covers. Well, because like Twist and Shout, like that's a cover, but it's theirs now.
It is theirs.
They took it.
Like they really do claim all of their covers. Sometimes it's hard to even know which one is a cover and what's not.
Yeah.
But Please Please Me for their first album is genuinely it's an amazing album.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I get it, girls. I get it. I get why it's 1963 and this is making you poop your pants. Let's get into the movie before we talk for 8 hours about minutia, as I'm sure we will accidentally do. The director is a man named Richard Lester, who also directed Help. That is what he is known for these days. I think he had some sort of basis, otherwise they wouldn't have trusted him with this, but this is so overshadowed any other thing that anyone involved with it did. The writer is Alan Owen, and again, this is kind of nowadays the only thing he was known for. Our guest stars, we have Wilfrid Bramble as Paul's grandpa. So the thing about...
The star of the show. The main character.
This man was a popular sitcom actor in a show which title I have not written down because it's not important, but what is important is that his catchphrase or whatever on that show was that he was known as a dirty old man. So that's why he's very clean.
I get it now.
So that's why everyone in this keeps saying that he's clean, because it's an in-joke with the British people.
Okay.
This movie is incredibly British.
I said he looks like Slug.
It's like Slugworth.
It's like Slugworth.
He was giving off a Slugworth vibe.
He's Slugworthy.
He is kind of skinny and creepy.
Like skeletal head.
Yeah. He's like a little lovable, but a little off-putting. They filmed it in March of 1964 because it was set for release in July. The entire film had to be produced in a period of 16 weeks, and it was shot largely in sequence, which is unusual for films.
It was publication date was July 6th, 1964.
Oh, your birthday.
My birthday.
Oh.
3 years before I was born.
Oh, well, happy birthday anyway. When they started filming at the train station, the Beatles had joined the Actors Union Equity that morning.
Is the Actors Union Equity for the British people, is that for film?
It's a different equity than the United States equity. I think equity is their
is the same as SAG?
Is their SAG, okay. Yeah. It premiered on your birthday, and then it had the UK premiere on July 10th and the US premiere on August 12th. We got it a month later, which I'm sure the Beatlemaniacs were not happy with.
Yeah, they didn't have bootlegs at that time.
Yeah, no, they just had to they just had to fly to England.
They had to read about it in the magazines.
I guess, yeah.
You'd have to get film strips in the mail.
Yeah. The movie opens with the iconic mystery chord that starts the song Hard Day's Night. This chord is like one of the most debated topics in pop music history because nobody remembers exactly how they did it or like what the formulation of the chord is, and there's all these arguments over it, and it's like George thinks he remembers that they did it like this, but nobody knows, and like they did attempts to recreate it, but like nobody really knows what chord this is or how to notate it properly.
Wow.
Playing over a shot of the Beatles running from fans. This is like one of the most iconic shots in cinema period, low-key.
Right,
yeah. Followed by George eating complete shit on the concrete pavement, yes. And then Ringo falling on him because Starrison is real. George actually did fully fall there, and they kept it in because they had totally just actually sicked actual Beatlemaniacs on them and said, run. And they had to, because otherwise they would have got them. And
one of the women's fell too.
Mm-hmm.
Someone fell, like one of the people
chasing them. One of the girls? Them. Yeah, I'm sure.
Did it happen at any point during filming that they forgot?
I don't know, because them being got, what happens exactly? I guess they just get their hair pulled.
Yeah, right? I'm just kind of picturing like John on the ground and a girl on top of him, like, I got one, and they're pulling his hair out.
Because as a Beatlemaniac, once you get the Beatles, what's the goal? I guess just like hug and kiss them.
I guess.
But
rip their clothes?
Yeah. Right, yeah. Take all of their clothes and hair, and you're good. The song Hard Day's Night, which opens our film, all of the songs in this period, I don't know when they started actually crediting who was the individual writer, but unless it was like a George song or a cover, they would just credit every single song to Lennon-McCartney and just pretend they collabed on it even if they didn't. So even though this is a Lennon-McCartney, John mostly wrote it with some minor collaboration from Paul.
Yeah, so he famously wrote it like to be, this is the one he wrote like to be serious, right? Like, I've been working so hard and my life is so hard, but then they're like, what if this was a fun song?
I think that was Help.
That was Help? Oh, you're right.
The title Hard Day's Night came from something Ringo said that they were like, oh, Ringo and your malapropisms. Right. I
got them confused. So that one was Help.
Yeah.
This is a Ringo quip.
Yeah. I also read that the reason Paul sang the bridge is because John couldn't reach the notes. The sequence is a lot of them running through the train station from fans, and then we cut to our first shot of our first non-Beatle character, who is, I call him Fake Brian throughout this. His name is Norm.
He is supposed to be Brian.
Yes, he is.
Sense. I said, who is this guy?
So that is Norm. He is Fake Brian. He is Fake Brian Epstein.
So their manager.
Yeah, he's their manager, based on Brian. Down to the combative, slightly homoerotic dynamic with John. We first see him chewing on the corner of a paper milk orb packaging, which is so quaint and post-war. The influence of World War II. British people still eat and drink like the bombs are falling. Guys, it's okay. You can have better food. You don't have to drink paper milk out of the paper orb. And the Beatles in this sequence are climbing all over stuff genuinely, much like the Monkees. we get the first shot of Paul. He's like on the bench with his grandpa. He like takes the newspaper down. He has a fake mustache and stuff. Yeah. And my first comment upon seeing Paul was, how can anyone believe in Paul is dead theory when he out of every celebrity there's ever been has looked and acted exactly the same his entire life? He really does. Like, watch any interview with him that came out in the past 5 years. That's the same guy. There is no other man that acts and looks. He has the same mannerisms, the quirk of his eyebrow, and the way that he looks and acts is nothing like his fake grandpa, by the way. Yeah. And the way that he acts is also very poor, because Paul is kind of a bad actor.
Yes, they're all bad actors throughout this, but I'll get more into that when they start actually speaking.
Yeah, this movie is just so important to me. I love them, and I love early Beatlemania era so much. So then we get the train scene.
The train scene, and one of my favorite scenes in the film, which inspired me to say, I watch this movie the way I watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show, finishing every line and shouting suggestive things at the screen.
Exactly.
It's exactly how I feel. I just like viscerally started saying every single line while watching it.
Who's that little old man? He's my grandfather. Oh, he's your grandfather. I bet your grandfather. No, he's my other one. Everyone's got two, don't they? Like, you can just, it's so quotable. This movie, it features very small, light, contested moments of improv. Most everything they say is very carefully scripted. The writer, Alan Owen, was from Liverpool. He was like a playwright or something from Liverpool. So he really had the Liverpool dialect down. He like spent some time with the Beatles to get to know their personalities. And kind of like the Spice Girls, he kind of made up tropey personalities for each of them, which then stuck in this fictionalized version. So this is the result. But yes, they're saying things that are real Liverpool, so that's why it sounds natural coming out of their mouths, but not a lot of it is improv. I just wrote, John, I want you.
I was just going to ask you, who are your favorite?
Who are your favorite? Okay. So I used to be a big George girl. You may have noticed that George looks identical to my ex-boyfriend. Shout out to Thomas. Shout out to my homie Thomas, who is still friends with me. He looks exactly like George, so I had to move on. And the thing is, here's the thing. I was more attracted to George back then. John, he's my favorite in the sense that, like, I hate him with affection. He's my favorite as a historical character of study. I am fascinated. I would read a book about him.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by his mind and the things that he did and what was wrong with him and what is wrong with John Lennon is what I would like to know. And that's
more like a psychological case.
Yeah.
Yes. My favorite is Paul. I've always been a Paul girl. I even go back and forth on who's my second favorite. I think my second favorite is normally I say George. I don't know. I love Paul so much, and there's so much to love about him. Like, I think his contributions to the band were so great, as he's known for. I think his life beyond the band is so iconic. One, his music is iconic, and the fact that he had this little farm in Scotland and some sheep is iconic. And like, if you even just look at his solo career and how different it is from everything he does with the Beatles, it's like, wow, you were really, really putting your full self into Temporary Secretary.
Yeah.
And all of that. He is so lovable.
Yes, he is a big cutie-full boy. What about you, Mom?
I'm going to say Paul.
Okay. Paul.
Good choice.
Dad kept I was talking to Dad about this the other day. Dad kept insisting to me that my favorite is actually Paul because Paul is the cutest. I think Dad has a crush on Paul.
Well, that doesn't make any sense for you.
No, it doesn't.
No, would it be?
Yeah, I don't
like George because that's your type.
I know. Yeah. The thing about George, I relate to John's personality more because John was always joking and like being kind of an asshole and like stuff like that. George was a lot more like, they called him quiet, and that was kind of a misnomer by the press thing, but he was more like reserved. He was more hands off, and especially later in life, he was a lot more like meditative and thoughtful.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, he's a background character because later in life, that was not, I mean, obviously they were all broken up.
Yeah.
And then John was murdered, but it was like he was still always he seemed to be a background character.
That's because people didn't give him enough credit, and because he had like a different type of personality. He got very, very into like Hinduism and like spirituality and stuff later in life, and that's kind of where most of his energy went. And if you can, sometime you should listen to All Things Must Pass, his solo album.
Such a good album.
Because it's this double album of every song that was rejected by the Beatles because John and Paul were being no, it's our club.
And the songs are amazing.
Yeah,
that's the one album that makes me question if his solo career is better than Paul's.
Yeah.
That album is so good.
It's so shady because he really released this 2 hours of beautiful, beautiful music that they refused to let him put out for no reason. As a fuck you, and it's really good. In this train scene, Paul is so bad at acting. He's trying so hard, though.
I'm sorry. One more thing. How old are they at this point? Do you know?
I have it written somewhere in this. George is 20. Paul is 21. Ringo and John are 23.
Okay, again,
that makes young.
Everybody
that hurts.
Just looks older, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They look older.
The Beatles, that's because they've lived through a war and cigarette use. That's what I think. They're British. They've had a hard life. Speaking of bad acting, well, if he's your grandfather,
who knows? Ha! Crazy. This line really got me thinking very deeply because, well, if he's your grandfather, who knows? Ha 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 ha. Is spoken by the Beatle that had the most of an acting career after this.
Why is shocking? In the rest of this movie, he's not even bad. He has that whole the whole sequence where he runs away. He's acting pretty well.
Yeah, he does a lot in this film.
I think he threw this line away on purpose, but it is very iconic. Such acting prowess was seen in Caveman, 1970, whatever.
I googled it to make sure.
Ringo says it, by the way. We haven't said
yes,
that.
It's Ringo.
Yeah.
To make sure that he actually had the most acting credits, and what I found was an article titled 4 Ringo Starr Films to Avoid: Relentless Crawling, Bloody Lack of Talent. So speaks for itself.
There's 4 to avoid, so how many more are there?
Well, the rest of other great ones.
Yeah. The influence of French New Wave cinema on the direction is really apparent. There's a lot of this film is really well shot. There's a shot here that I noticed where it's the bench with the 3 Beatles and then Paul and the grandpa are framed in the mirror above their heads, and I'm oh, that's a nice shot. That took a while to set up. So this one is very well directed.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a well thought out, well made movie.
Piece of cinema. Yeah.
Yes.
The way that Help is certainly not.
No.
And the Beatles are all touching and fixing their hair constantly. It's so cute. So then Shake comes in. Hello, Shake. Shake is their road manager, kind of based on Mal Evans and Neil Aspinall, apparently. He's if Mal Evans was meek and skinny, which is the 2 things that Mal Evans was not. Fake Brian also arrives, and he says, "Come Ed, Shake. Come Ed." Is his catchphrase in this movie.
What is he saying?
Come Ed. Come ahead.
Oh.
To mean let's go. I'm gonna keep calling him Fake Brian because that's his name to me. And much like real Brian, he has a certain tension with John. Now, I may not be a true McLennan truther, but I may be a true Lenstein truther. I may be a true Lenstein truther a little bit.
Yes, McLennan is it's good for the fun and the jokes, but Lenstein, that was real. There
is documented evidence that they had some sort of sexual encounter at some point, and it comes through a little bit in this because they give him they give Norm the manager a combative relationship where he's always trying to control John because John is keeps saying crazy stuff and being an asshole, and in this instance what he's doing is sniffing his Pepsi bottle. It's Pepsi, it's not Coke, so he's not sniffing Coke.
Oh, it's not even a Coke
it's
bottle?
Not even,
I totally thought it was a Coke bottle.
I know, too, because they like the Beatles like Coke.
You can't see the label in I was telling Mr. earlier, I have a framed photo of John Lennon sniffing the Pepsi bottle, but it's cut off, you can't see the label, but yes, he's doing that, and then Brian is "Are you listening to me, Lennon?" And he's "You're a swine."
Yeah. Risque drug references already. Then the Beatles proceed to visit all the train cars, on the Hogwarts Express. Is that what British people do on trains? Do they visit all the cars? Because that's kind of a weird thing to do.
Say hi.
They drop into a cabin with an old man who is a World War II veteran, and they harass him to show generational tensions. I think this is a very interesting instance of the specter of World War II still looming over England. The Beatles love to make Nazi jokes. It's kind of uncomfortable. They do it a lot. They'll throw a Nazi salute. They'll make a little Hitler mustache with their finger. It is not in any kind of way like they're just being edgelords. They're very, very anti-Nazi because John was born literally as Liverpool was being bombed. This is a conflict that like had a very real chance of like killing them as children. So they kind of get a license to like make edgelord jokes about it.
Sure, Beatles.
But it was still really like overshadowed the country at this time. So Ringo, with his giant blue orbs, turns on his radio to annoy this old man, which is like watching Instagram Reels on the train out loud. So TBH, he's allowed to be mad. And then to annoy him, John says to him, "Give us a kiss," because he's a bi king. And then they do the "Mister, can we have our ball back" bit, which I love because they are little boys and annoying, like the Monkees. And also, like the Monkees, they have shadow realm powers because they teleport to the outside of the train.
They can teleport in this movie. It happens several times.
And they're like running outside the train. There's little surreal moments like that in this otherwise like fake documentary that are super fun. And I think that they, much like the Monkees, have shadow realm powers, but they choose to use them much more sparingly because they're classy and demure and they know the limits of their power.
They're British.
Yeah.
And that's also what makes this movie so good, is like it's so grounded in a plot that seems like something that could really happen to them, and there's just these little moments of strange surrealism that bring it to life.
But you're almost like, yeah, the real Beatles could do that because they had the power. And then they all carry Ringo because he's small and compact, and they pass the window. And then we cut to the dining car of the train, and Pattie is there!
Pattie Boyd is here!
Pattie Boyd was George's first wife. She was an actress and model. She was one of the schoolgirls on the train. Mm-hmm. She's the blonde one, who has one line. She's "prisoners." She's my idol. She's my icon. I talk to her on Twitter and she never responds because why would she? but I just mean that she's like still out there doing stuff. And my profile picture is always her. Because then I think it subliminally tricks people into thinking she looks like me because we have the same hair. George met Pattie on the set of this movie right here and asked her out, even though she had a boyfriend at the time. But 18 months later, they were married.
And so much went downhill.
Surely it did. But it was cute at first. She wrote in her diary that day, we have like a picture of the diary entry, "George Harrison asked me out. George Harrison. And I think that is so cute. And I hope they paid Pattie 1 billion quid for her one speaking line because they don't give her a credit, which...
Really?
Yeah, she's not in the credits.
Oh.
Well, she got George, though.
Yeah. So she won in the end. It cuts back to the managers. Shake is reading Son of Mad. I love the, like, texture of this movie in the sense that, like, 1964, we're in the 60s now, but we aren't in the full like neon colors, psychedelia, plastic, and paisley. It's still kind of like almost World War II. It's very like tweed suits, black and white footage, minimal makeup, but the hair is still giant and sprayed to hell, and the pop culture elements are still like sprinkled in there. I love like there's still a lot of girls who go dressed to like Paul concerts in like that sort of fashion.
Yeah,
that, like,
I think
early
it's
60s.
So cute.
It's a really great look, and it's so specific to this period. And plus the like super like Scouse Liverpool writing is so cool, but also classy as an American who thinks all England things are classy because it's like lower class England. You know, it's this contradiction in my American mind that hits a very special place. So they're walking along the train, and a horny 35-year-old woman with a dog wants Ringo, but he's so insecure that he doesn't believe her. Nowadays, everyone knows that Ringo is the ugliest Beatle, which is hateful because there are some Ringo girls out there who appreciate him. Ringo is the most unique looking. He was actually the most popular in the US at this time because Americans love an underdog. Also, because I think it was kind of like a meme. Like there was a period where people wanted Ringo to become president of America, which he's not allowed to do. Another thing I noticed during this part was that the kind of characterization of the Beatles, because this movie is meant to sell them as a product, like in the way the Monkees TV show was, but like less overt. And it really characterizes them for all the concerned American dads out there that as like smart and cheeky and funny and a little edgy, but like ultimately harmless and okay for your daughter to go yell at. They go back in the car with the schoolgirls, and John does his prisoner bit where he's like, we'll be escaped from jail and you'll never guess what I was in for. And Pattie is like fangirling and like flapping her hands. Me too, girl. To punish Grandpa for hanging out with a young woman, they put him in chicken jail on the back of the train. Yeah. Let the man have fun, Paul. So over the next song, all the schoolgirls watched the Beatles play cards in chicken jail to I Should Have Known Better, which is a John song. When I was looking at this song, looking up information, I found something that said, Take 2 was aborted when Lennon broke into hysterics over his harmonica playing. I don't know what that means. Or mouth organ, as he called it for some reason. Yes. John played harmonica on their first couple albums. Because Bob Dylan? Question mark?
Because Bob Dylan.
Because Bob Dylan. And Ringo was playing his drums inside of the train.
Yeah. Because there's so much room in chicken jail.
Exactly. And then they let Pattie sit inside chicken jail because she is the 5th Beatle. Ringo wins at cards because he is wearing his lucky rings, for that is how he got his name.
Of course.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So yeah, because
I know his name is Richard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's called Ringo because he has rings.
Okay. Like
yeah.
Will Hat?
Yeah, like Will Hat. Maybe that's why they thought that would work on the Monkees.
The lucky ring will come back in the next episode.
Yeah. They have a little moment before the next scene where they like switch between cars with more actual Beatlemaniacs as extras, and you can see the cops literally holding them back and them literally jumping on the car. We'll get into this more later, but Beatlemania is like mass hysteria, but like voluntarily. Like, they just really felt that strongly about these boys. And
I agree.
I feel that it is religious. In fact, I have written a play on this.
Yes, for sure.
In the hotel, they're eating their little triangle sandwiches.
Which looked tasteless.
Yeah. Much like the Monkees, the Beatles eat gross 60s foods, but
British.
They're British.
Yeah, they're British, so they're even sadder.
Yeah, so they're even, but I guess those are just normal British foods of today, honestly.
Little tea sandwiches.
Yeah. They all make fun of Ringo's nose and how he snores. And this is why I think that Peter is the Ringo of the Monkees, because they stop hating on my boy and being mean to him for no reason.
Yeah, it makes sense.
He's a little funny looking.
Yeah. Don't.
So I do believe he is the Peter.
Yeah.
And they're both made to be like kind of goofy and stupid.
Yeah, the sad little underdog who is always wah, wah, shut up, Ringo. But Ringo then gets the most fan mail because he's the favorite.
Yes.
And I know that's right. It included in his fan mail packet is a letter from this like gambling club asking him to come party. And Paul reads it out. He goes, Mr. Richard Starkey, that's you. For anyone who is unaware what Ringo's actual name is. And Paul looks directly in the camera because he can't act. Alas, fake Brian is a parental hater, and he doesn't let them go out. And he says, it's homework time for you load of college puddings. And that's when I remembered that they were, in fact, 20 years old. And I got sad because look at what they have achieved in their time. But since the Beatles are misbehaving scamps, they disobey father's instructions and go out dancing. Here we have like a little montage of songs from With the Beatles. So these were like songs that would have been out for a while, and we don't hear the full thing of them. We got I Want to Be Your Man, which is a Lennon McCartney song, but it was first released by the Rolling Stones. And the Beatles version was sung by Ringo. And we also see during this Ringo's excellent dancing.
I said he just keeps punching.
Yeah, he's like hunched over and twitching, kind of. I don't know how to describe it. They do really...
It's really unique.
The Beatles stage presence, they do really like stand and move kind of like bugs. Like they're very twitchy and hoppy and shiny and all wearing black suits.
Like Beatles.
Yeah, exactly. And Paul's making stupid faces in the corner. Unlike the Monkees, the Beatles are allowed to smoke and drink on camera. Is this because America is Puritan or because TV is? I think it's an American thing. I think it's like the youth.
I think it's a TV thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably TV thing, and also, I think you have more lenience in movies, like because of rules, and also because the Beatles weren't made to be characters from the beginning. Like people know this.
Right? Yeah.
No, they were definitely TV had like really high standards on all these
Yeah,
things.
that's true. But like also the Monkees management didn't allow them to like smoke in public ever, and if they were caught, it was like a scandal. Meanwhile, like there's that interview where George is like blowing smoke into the mic, and there's that other like the clip of them on the train where they're like, "We are George and John enjoying our Marlboro cigarettes." Paul's grandpa steals the hotel butler's clothes to gamble next to some lady's boobs. They keep cutting back to this in the middle of the Beatles dancing.
He took the invitation to the gambling house, and then he needed a tuxedo to look rich.
There's a lot of stuff in these two movies that, like, every time the Beatles aren't on screen, my eyes glaze over, and I already have, like, enough notes, so I kind of skip over some stuff. Another song they dance to is Don't Bother Me, which is a George song. The way you would just, like, dance in front of someone, and that was romance. And then they play a little bit of All My Loving, also from With the Beatles, which is a Paul song. I think it's interesting. I think part of what contributes to, like, the uniqueness of the early Beatlemania era is the fact that the Beatles were still accessible. You could still see them. You could still go bang on their car. Even if you wouldn't hear them or anything, you could still, like, they weren't, like, locked away.
That's true. They were out and about.
Not that they ever completely were, because, like, you could go be an apple scruff if you really wanted to in the later era, but, and you could go shoot John.
I was going to say you could walk up to John Lennon on the street in front of his house.
Yeah, right. But like they were being put in front of you as a product in a way that they weren't later on. Then the managers find them dancing and they make them leave. And the hotel butler, whose clothes Grandpa stole, is just chilling in their hotel room reading an Elvis magazine in his underwear.
He's in the closet, in the wardrobe. And I think John opens it first. One of them opens it first, and it's like, and then there's a man in there.
They don't care. They don't care.
They go. They're like, oh, there's an old man in the closet.
Maybe they think he's shadow realmed. Paul says that his grandpa is probably in the middle of some orgy right now.
The boys get so excited.
They got so excited about the orgy, so they all run out to
the butler wants to go, and they go, "No, you're too old."
Yeah,
and you have no clothes on.
So they run to the gambling place where Grandpa is. Shake gets in by saying that he is Ringo's sister. Yas. And fake Brian is angry that Grandpa has racked up a bill of £180, but luckily he won £190. Now, this is not the standard Monkee $100. I looked it up, and according to my math, that is $6,348.26. Grandpa!
That's crazy.
How did he bring up that much? What was he paying for?
What was he paying?
I don't know. The company of that nice lady and her large bosoms.
I guess.
Wait, is that just the conversion to dollars, or is that how much that would be in today's money?
That's my conversion to 2026 American dollars.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then it cuts back to the hotel. They're getting ready for the night. John is taking a bath with hat and pants on. Hey, they know what the people want, okay? And then John plays Hitler Submarine because he's free and edgy, but as I said, he was born during a Nazi bombing, so it's fine. Like I said, this whole thing was written. There wasn't a ton of improv, but this was a bit he did a lot. I'm going to bring out, now that our set is falling down, our first instance of John's writing right on the back of this wonderful book, which is a book full of John's nonsense. He literally says, "About the awful. I was bored on the 9th of October 1940 when I believe the nasties were still booming us, led by Madaff Heatlump, who only had one. Anyway, they didn't get me." So that's like, he defines himself by that. So that was a real bit he did a lot. So I'm assuming the writer heard him do it and was like, let's put that in. And then George teaches Shake how to use a safety razor by like shaving his reflection on the mirror, which is a cool framing for a shot.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah. Also, like the like weird, like this kind of sexual, kind of innocent thing of them shaving. The fans are, there's a lot of like pictures of that because it's like kind of intimate, but it's kind of like innocent and like like typical. I just think it's an interesting thing that
it's the same as seeing Mike like dry his hair.
Yeah. I want to see you boys in the bathroom. I want to see your bathroom routine.
Taking a bath fully clothed.
Yeah. John then uses his shadow realm powers to disappear down the bathtub drain, and fake Brian is very concerned until he like comes in and he's like, "What? I've been here the whole time."
Yeah, this is another example of crazy shadow realm surrealism. Like, what if we imagine John fully drowned and the rest of this is his imagination?
Well, maybe much like in Help, he turned tiny like Paul.
Oh, perhaps.
Then the Beatles use a hobo's tent to enter the press conference building. They steal a homeless man's home and use it for
Is that what that is?
It looks like it. They go to this little tent structure, and then there's a guy there with like a pot or like a little fire or something. Like,
I didn't realize that. Yeah. The guy, I was like, wow, they set up this tent for them to escape into? That's really strange.
No.
They stole this guy's house.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
In this next scene, John is wearing his John hat. And then I wrote, wait, is my type the hat one?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. John had this little leather fisherman's cap because Brian didn't let them wear leather pants anymore. So he had to make do with his hat. And during this press conference that they go into, no one will let them take hors d'oeuvres. My hungry guys! Yes. They're my hungry guys.
They couldn't get something to drink. They couldn't get any food.
Yeah.
And then I just have lots of questions. I'm sure Sommer and Molly know these.
Yes.
Okay.
The iconic press conference quotes.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's what it was. They were talking.
This is an iconic scene.
So first we get a shot of George making like really quick faces for the camera, like ch-ch-ch, and he just makes different faces, like that Chinese model who can do 10 million poses in 1 second. It's like this montage of these press conference quotes. All of these are iconic. I just wrote down the most quoted ones. How did you find America? And then John says, turn left at Greenland. Are you a mod or a rocker?
I don't know. I'm a mucker.
He's a mucker. And then the reporter goes, have you any hobbies? And then John writes something and she goes, oh, what he wrote was tits. His hobby is tits. And then Paul answers everything with, no, actually, we're just good friends. Even, do you see your dad a lot?
No, actually, we're just good friends.
And then, what would you call that hairstyle you're wearing? And George says, Arthur. He named it. The Beatles are bored with this press conference, so they make faces at each other, indicating that they will now escape. So they pick up Ringo, for he is small, and they head off to the set for their show, which is going to be happening later. They get on the set for their show, and Ringo fights a stagehand for touching his drums. And George says that Ringo's drums loom large in his legend. That's not how he says it, though. I can't do a good George accent. I saw someone on Twitter the other day being like, fanfic writers, please use a different dialogue tag than drawled for George, please. But, like, how else do you describe the sound that comes out of his mouth?
Yeah, he has a very specific type of accent.
He doesn't really. He has one. He talks down here, and he doesn't vary his tone very much. He's drawling.
Yeah.
To cheer Ringo up, John plays If I Fell for Him.
As we all know.
Because that's how you cheer someone up. You play the love song.
You sing a song.
But also because Len Star is real. This is a John song that he mostly wrote. During the way John holds an acoustic guitar like an inch under his chin is so funny to me. He's like, he has the strap way too tight. Also, in the background, George knocks an amp over during this. Then the TV director comes in. I think I call him Gay Sweater Man.
I said, who is this guy in the fuzzy, hairy sweater?
He's the TV director.
Musical arranger.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently that was the actor's real sweater. This actor is named...
and he wanted to wear it.
Yeah, he
really loved this sweater.
No, it was his real sweater, and he gave it to a Beatle fan club later on.
Okay.
Yeah. This actor's named Victor Spinetti, which I point out because he was in Help and Magical Mystery Tour, I believe. He's their actor friend who they call on. He's almost the antagonist of this movie because he puts time limits on the Beatles, which is so mean. God forbid they be on time for their performance. But fake Brian agrees to lock the Beatles in the dressing room so they can't get in any more trouble. They're like backstage. There's a guy with like an old-timey costume, and John says that his costume is gear, which is one of the Beatles' slang.
What does it mean?
Cool or groovy, but it was Liverpool. And then he also acts hornily towards some showgirls, despite having a wife and child. Hold on. Is my type the one with the wife and child?
The one with the wife and child.
Who he cheats on. And then the Beatles escape. Weed! and it's the Can't Buy Me Love sequence, best sequence in this movie.
It's so good.
It's a Paul song. I love them so much. This is literally a monkey romp right now.
Yeah, it really is. It's very monkey-esque.
I said there's really shaky aerial footage of them in the park running around. And I'm like, how did they take that? Like, how did they film that?
I believe helicopter.
Okay. It was like, it was super shaky.
I believe they did the drone shots by helicopter.
Yeah, they didn't have
there was no
remote control drone at the time.
Yeah, it's the shots are also sped up to make them run around faster, which is probably contributing to the shake. They're skinny little limbs in black suits. They're literally bugs. They're my bugs. Paul violently attacks the camera. And then I wrote, "Yes, play, my boys." they're like playing track and field games poorly. And there's these like slow-mo shots of each of them jumping, and then Ringo like barely gets off the ground. And then the groundskeeper comes and yells at them, and they go, "Sorry, we hurt your field, mister."
I thought that was funny.
Yeah. John was actually not on set that day. He was away promoting this very book. And so it was a body double in the faraway scenes, and then they shot his close-ups another day. They get back in the theater. John has fake Brian stressing. And then there's a scene with like John and this woman in the hallway where she's like, "Oh, are you him?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm not him. I just look like him." And they have this whole like back and forth dialogue. It's a really like interesting, well-written scene. Apparently Mal Evans is in that scene for a second. He like pushes by holding some equipment. Oh, wow. So look for him if you rewatch. Then we get the George focus group scene. George wanders into a random room where some like marketing executive wants to know his young person opinion on their products since he's young.
Yeah, and they're like clothes.
Yeah, much like Monkees.
The mods of today.
Yeah, and he says, "Oh, by all means, I'd be quite prepared for that eventuality," which is another.
And then we're introduced to Susan, who's a trendsetter.
Yeah,
aka an influencer.
Yeah, she's an influencer. Well, first they give him some shirts, normal looking shirts, and he says that they are dead grotty.
They're just like plain collared shirts.
He's just being contradictory.
He hates them.
And then he defines grotty for us as grotesque. And apparently this was not a real thing the Beatles said. It was a word in Liverpool that the writer said. The Beatles had never heard it before. But
which is why he probably had to define it.
Yeah. But then it became like a huge trend for all the kids in America to say, of course. But this film is cited by the OED, which I don't know what that stands for, as the first recorded use of this word. So George doesn't like their shirts, and he doesn't like Susan. He says that they turn the sound down on her and say rude things. And the marketing guy is like, no, he can't be right.
Get him out of here.
Get him out. Just in case. Fire Susan, though.
Yeah, poor Susan.
Yeah.
Susan's having a hard day.
Yeah, I know. He's like, George's opinion doesn't matter. We are the real culture makers, unaware that he's in the presence of Beetle, you know? Right. It's very interesting because they didn't know to what degree the entire culture would rotate on its axis around these four guys, you know? Oh, another thing he says, George says, "I don't care," and then he says, "That's out too. The new thing is to care passionately and be right-wing." It's funny to me that like the two things that define youth culture are being left-wing and not caring about anything because they're emo, which is still kind of true, you know? He's trying to reach the pulse of the youth culture, and he can't find it because the young people know what's up, and that is the point of this movie. I skipped a little bit. It wasn't that interesting. We're now at the next song. The Beatles have arrived on a stage with some hexagon set pieces to rehearse And I Love Her, which is a Paul song, where George looks tiny behind his big guitar, and Ringo plays the bongo. And then they go back to the dressing room and fuck around with items. John puts this, like, fake beard like over his nose and like starts coming in the mirror and he goes, "My name's Betty." and then Ringo wears like a Queen's Guard fluffy hat under the dryer, and then John combs it for him and he goes, "Hey, he's reading the Queen," because he's reading a magazine called The Queen, and then he goes, "That's an in joke, you know." "What's the joke?" "Let me in now. I want to know your joke." George goes to a woman. "You won't interfere with the basic rugged concept of me personality, madam." George has a lot of iconic lines in this. And then there's this very loaded exchange to me, a Linstein truther. Grandpa says, "You're a bunch of sissies." And John says, "You're just jealous." Fake Brian says, leave him alone then, or I'll tell him all the truth about you. And John goes, you wouldn't. Fake Brian goes, oh, I would, though.
Just crazy.
Grandpa is bored of being in a train and a room and a room and a bus, club, another club, another club. So John calls him sex obsessed. They then go back onto a different soundstage or somewhere where there are large pictures of Beatles' The Literal Bug, where people are tap dancing to the piano instrumental of Happy Just to Dance With You.
I love that little instrumental cover. I think it's so catchy.
Yeah. I think that was supposed to be somebody else at the studio.
Someone else's.
Another show.
But it happens to be Beatles themed as well.
It is Beatles song.
Yeah. And then they play the song for real. This is a Lennon McCartney song, but they wrote it for George because they hated it and threw it away.
It's my favorite song on the album. Yeah. I love this song.
Yeah, Paul called it a formula song. John said I would have never sung it myself. I have always said that this song is 1960s Sweatshirt by Jacob Sartorius.
No, it's good.
I'm not saying that it's not. I'm saying that it has similar themes of, hey girl, I know you're literally 10 and you're too scared of like intimacy to even kiss me or hold my hand, but it's okay. There are other ways
wear
we
my
can
sweatshirt.
Date. You can wear my sweatshirt. I'm happy just to dance with you. I don't even need to touch you.
It's like
okay.
a good non-intimidating boy song.
Yeah. George's teeth are so British. George has vampire teeth.
He does.
I don't know if you noticed this. He has very pointy little canines. Mm-hmm. And I noticed in the framing, he's kind of singing it to Ringo. Because Harristar is real. Starison. No one calls it Harristar. Starison is real. Fake Brian says, you've got an hour to the show. You can't leave the theater. And then John tries to leave with the showgirl to go see her stamp collection and makes a pig noise at Fake Brian when he tells him to be there for the final run-through. I wonder what Cynthia thought of this. Ringo gets assigned to give Grandpa a cup of tea after George plugs his ears when he is asked, where's his damn grandson to take care of him? Why is this Ringo's job? So Ringo and Grandpa go to the
commissary.
The commissary. Is this like a theater or a TV studio? I don't know.
It's a TV studio.
It's like a theater.
It's a TV studio.
Okay. They go to the commissary, and Grandpa convinces Ringo that he's unappreciated and he needs to live life instead of reading books. They say books a bunch of times. And Ringo's convinced by this.
Ringo and Paul's grandpa have a lot of beef in this film.
Yeah. They have, well, Paul's grandpa tries to use Ringo, and since Ringo is kind of a Peter Tork simpleton, he is easily manipulated.
I said super close-ups for some reason.
Yeah, so you can really see Grandpa's scary teeth and eyes. As Ringo's leaving, he runs into George wearing a dumb hat, and George goes, hey Ringo, you know what just happened to me? And Ringo goes, no, I don't. And we never find out. We never find out what happened to George and how he got that hat. And now
he goes parading.
Yeah, this is kind of the plot of the back half of the movie, is that Ringo runs away and is missing, and we have to find him before the big show. So the rest of the Beatles run out looking for him. So now we have no Beatles for our run through, which is happening soon. So on Ringo's day out, we listen to an instrumental, easy listening arrangement of This Boy, or That's Boy, as I like to call it, because of that one performance where John and Paul kept mixing up the words and they said, That's Boy. This instrumental version is entitled Ringo's Theme, and it is credited to George Martin, their producer, because he did all the work. So while this is happening, Ringo, he's taking pictures, he goes thrifting so that he can have a poor people disguise. He tries and fails to take a selfie on a rock.
His camera lands in the drink.
I have a note from IMDb. Sir Ringo Starr was praised for his solo scene at the riverside as a forlorn soul, but his expression in that scene was the result of being severely hungover after a previous night of heavy drinking.
Oh, okay.
So he was like not doing acting.
No, he was just hungover. They apparently were very hungover for a lot of this. Each Beatles movie does kind of have a special drug that it is themed to, and Hard Day's Night is alcohol.
It will give you a hard day's night.
It would give you a hard day's night. Ringo meets a little boy on the riverside who is not in school, and he asks, and the little boy's like, well, why are you not in work? Which, good point. And then he tells him about his 3 little boyfriends. Ginger's mad. He says things all the time. And Eddie's good at spitting and punching. And Ding Dong's a big Ed. He fancies himself. He's all right, though, because he's one of the gang. So those are supposed to kind of be like descriptions of the Beatles. Yeah. He's mad and he says things all the time. That's John. He's good at spitting and punching is George. And a big Ed who fancies himself is Paul.
And the one that's supposed to be Ringo is named Ding Dong?
No, Ding Dong is the Paul one. I think Ringo is supposed to be like the one who's the little boy.
I don't think he gets his name.
Yeah.
They hit it off really well, really fast. It's like Davey making friends with the little kids.
Well, that's because Ringo is a friend to the children. He is lovable, and the Beatles are lovable, and you should let your children buy their products. Back at the studio, the managers and Grandpa are stressed. They're like, there's 20 minutes left. And Fake Brian's like, oh, Ringo, he's out with his wine, women, and song. And then it cuts to Ringo eating the worst sandwich.
Again, the sandwiches like
it was a very sad sandwich.
Yeah. And then he gets kicked out of the pub for breaking all of the pub games.
Sorry, that was really loud, but he was just breaking everything.
Yeah, he smashes the glass. He threw a dart at a bird.
Yeah.
It's very mean.
Apparently pubs did have like a pub pet like that.
It's really weird.
In the olden days, and that's why there was a bird there. Again with live animals, though. Stop endangering live animals for this. And a copper takes note when he's kicked out.
Some cop is tracking him.
2 minutes to the run-through. All of the Beatles, other than Ringo, show back up. And the sweater gay director yells at them poshly, and Paul imitates his accent. Outside, Grandpa is selling these fake autographs that he made by forging Paul's signature to all the Beatlemaniacs outside, and he gets arrested. And then Ringo tries to be chivalrous to a lady, but he underestimates the depth of a hole that he puts his coat over for her. And then he gets arrested for nothing.
The cop was watching.
The cop was watching. But they take him into the station, and then the cop says a bunch of like synonyms for loitering as the reason why he was arrested. And then the other cop goes, a little savage is he? And the other cop goes, yeah, probably a little aboriginal. Hello!
Like, whoa! I don't think you can say that!
No. Luckily, when Grandpa's arrested, he's brought to the same station as Ringo. Grandpa is very ACAB from his time in the IRA. Hello? So he tells Ringo that the cops are just evil, and he needs to break free from the system. Meanwhile, the cops are being very polite. And he's like, I'll distract the cops. And then he just runs away.
That's right.
Thanks, Grandpa.
And they just look at him like, oh, where'd he go?
Yeah. Oh, he's off.
They were like trying to get him home safely or something. Yeah. They weren't going to do anything to him.
The managers have given up on having the Beatles do a run through. It is now half an hour to the actual final show.
Ringo lays down and takes a nap on the bench.
Yeah. George is drawing a mustache on the TV monitor. Grandpa runs back to the studio. He pays some children to sick the security with their bucket that they have.
Who doesn't have a bucket?
Yeah. I love to pay children to sick an adult.
Who doesn't play with their bucket?
Yeah. Grandpa tells the rest of the Beatles where Ringo is, and they all bark and run to go get Ringo. Sweater Man is like, there's only 20 minutes left of the show. Then they play Can't Buy Me Love again because they're running about. The shots in this section reminded me very of like Wes Anderson, like a lot of like very flat wides of them like running across and like a little tableau. And I also, at this point, wanted to note the stupid way in which British cop helmets are designed.
They're so silly.
Like the chin strap on, like under the lip.
When they're all running, they run out of the police station, and everybody runs out, and except for Ringo. And then the cops follow, and then Ringo follows the cops. And then they go back. They're like, wherever they're running around, they just keep leaving Ringo behind. They're like being chased. Nobody's chasing Ringo. He's just following everybody like, hey guys, wait for me.
Yeah. Ringo, he's kind of the outsider Beatle in a lot of ways. He was the oldest. He was the last to join the group. He was the only one who like came from a different area of Liverpool. He didn't go to school with them. He wasn't in their friend group. He met them way later when they had already been established as an act. He had like different experience. He was more of a like studio drummer almost.
Yeah.
and he was the weirdest looking. He was also like sickly as a child. So he's the differentest Beatle in a lot of ways. So I think that's kind of why they have this fascination. It's easiest to make him a character.
Right.
He was also like the easiest to make into a cartoon when they made the literal Beatles cartoon.
Right. Yeah.
So they play into that for the movies.
So when they're running and they're on their way back to the TV studio, they come through some alleyway, and there's a woman in the shop next to the alleyway, and she like positions herself to watch what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think she's part of the movie. I think she just happened to be like in the shop, and she was.
I mean, that's likely, yeah. Finally, everyone returns to the TV studio. The Sweater Man is so grateful that he doesn't have to do the news in Welsh for life now that the Beatles are back. Cut to real Beatlemaniacs in the theater, not acting at all, just genuinely going through it. I think this is so interesting because the girls watching this in theaters would be seeing a mirror of themselves at this moment.
Yeah.
Also, when this was in theaters, people were screaming through the whole thing like it was a concert. They couldn't hear the dialogue. They couldn't.
Like, that's crazy to me. Like, I'm imagining what if one of the scenes where the Beatles aren't on screen? Not that there's that much of it, but what if it's like Paul's grandfather? Like, oh my god!
Do you think they went quiet for Paul's grandpa, or do you think they were all still screaming?
I don't know what's funnier.
Yeah. Who knows? I love any footage of Beatlemaniacs. I love Beatlemaniacs so much. I can't even explain. The first song the Beatles play is "Tell Me Why," a John song that is pretty evenly sung by John, Paul, and George. I like when they let George sing. I like when they let George sing.
They did not let Ringo sing.
They did not. During the concert, they're wearing the gray suits with like the black like velvet lapels. You may think the Mop Top Beatles only have one iconic dark suit, but in fact they have several distinct iconic matching suit looks. They have the collarless ones, they have plain black, and then they have these from the end of this. I have to give it to Brian for the impeccable logic of making them all match, because that is what the girls want, because they want them to be a little set of dolls, you know? And I love it. I love it. I love their look. The next song they play is "If I Fell." Paul is sweating.
Their crowd noise cuts out. They muffle the crowd noise.
Yeah.
For the second song.
All the songs they're using are the like recorded version that was on the albums too. They're lip syncing to it. It's not like they're performing them live in the movie. But they were performing something because you can see that they're sweating really hard. Then they do "I Should Have Known Better." I love when they're performing. A lot of Beatles tribute acts try to capture their energy because they're always tapping their foot, bopping around, twitching, like literal bugs. George is like shifting between his feet. They're rocking and rolling. And I love to see it. And then they switch to a different set for the last song, which is "She Loves You." They have this like big tiled background that like lights up and says Beatles, and Grandpa emerges from the floor for a second. "She Loves You" is not on the Hard Day's Night album or on With the Beatles. It was just a single, and then it was later on like Beatles 2 or like, but it was not an album track. It is equally written by John and Paul.
There is some woman, the whole time they're doing this footage, they keep showing some woman adjusting knobs in the booth. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, this woman has a job.
Yay! Women employment. Here's my main takeaway from kind of the live footage of Beatlemaniacs, is that the Beatlemaniac emotion is one in which euphoria is inseparable from despair. These girls are so like ecstatic to actually be in the room with the Beatles, which I would be, because they're like elevated beyond like celebrity almost, and it's almost a coincidence like why these guys, yes, they're cute and they make really good music, but like I don't know, it's bigger than that almost.
Yeah, I mean,
something else is at play here that I can't put my finger on.
Like that's what I'm saying about like, even though there have been artists before them, like Frank Sinatra or like Elvis, for example, that like, you know, the kids will go crazy for the way in which Beatlemania impacted people. I think is so on a different scale. Like cathartic is maybe the word that comes to mind.
They were definitely, like, they were the reason for it, but it became something else almost disconnected from them, where it was just like, it's the 60s, and I'm young, and I don't know who I am. I don't know how it means to be in this world. I know if I go here, I can scream my head off because I'm so happy to be a part of this generation. I'm so happy to be alive. I'm so happy that I like these boys and I like this music. And everyone here feels the same as me. We all know why we're here and we can all share this together. That's really compelling. Then the Beatles do their synchronized bow that they do. And they're off to bus another club, because the grind never stops for a Beatle in 64. By which I mean that a helicopter picks them up. Yeah. Grandpa is chained to the inside of the helicopter. And fake Brian calls John a swine. One last little flirting in there. The credit design is also pretty interesting to me. It's like the outtakes from the album cover photo shoot, because the album cover is like the 4 lines of like the pictures of them. Right. Some of these are some of those, but they're also just other stuff from that photo shoot. Just really presented like flashes. Very new wave still. Especially the ones of like just their hair. That's very like, oh, look, they're the Beatles. They have that hair. You know the Beatles. You know they have that hair.
My only comment on that is that's what the Monkees do at their outro is the pictures.
Yeah, right.
Just like
the influence. So yes, to bring it back to the Monkees, as this is the Monkees pod, in case we forgot. I find it interesting that everyone everywhere always cites, like, Raybert saw Hard Day's Night, and they were like, we need to make a show out of this, and not Help. Because as we're about to see, Help is much more similar to the way that the Monkees show turned out. But I think just like the concept of these are boys in a band and they romp.
Right.
And to have that as the basis for what this is. You can just see this is so much more like technically proficient and like sensical, and it's probably because of the budget and the like care and the artistry, but I don't know. Because Help had a higher budget and it did not help.
I don't know what was going on. Well, we'll talk about it.
We'll find out what's going on very shortly. But for now, Beatle out.
Beatles
out.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of the Monkees Pod. You can follow us on Instagram and the website formerly known as Twitter, @MonkeesPod. Now, there are an infinite number of Beatles songs that I could sing in the outros for these, but that's boring, so I'm going to do my impressions of the Beatles instead for everyone. Hello, my name is Paul McCartney, and I'm John Lennon, and I'm George Harrison. Shut up, Ringo. He told himself to shut up. I don't know. Bye.